Well, it was nearly the perfect session for India. After trailing in the test match for the best part of both days, they could have gone through today after dismissing England for just 9 additional runs, picking up the last 2 wickets. They could have gone through to lunch without a wicket fallen, but for the second time in this test, a wicket has taken us to lunch. KL Rahul's dismissed. It's been a forgettable test match for him, and India had 34 for 1, trailing by 320. On ESPN to confirm match day, it's lunch on day 3. Steve Harmison and Maninder Singh with me. Money, that was almost the perfect session for India.
Yes, I also thought so. I was thinking that Root and the England team must be thinking that these Indian boys, they're in the habit of scoring big hundreds, and if these two stick on, probably those 200s could come from the top four, and that could be trouble for us. But they would be really satisfied with this wicket. I mean, it was a brilliant catch by Braisto, and these kind of catches actually stick into your hands because they're going very quickly. But your concentration level has to be very high for them to stick in your hands as well. So the English boys must be, a lot more calmer at the minute that we've got the first one.
Yeah, I mean, fair fact is maybe KL Rahul would think, oh, I'm unlucky for one of those to stick like that. But credit to England. Steve Craig Overton's beaten the bat a few times. Holly Robinson's asked questions. They've deserved a wicket, you think?
Yeah, they've bowled well. England have bowled well, and India have played well. I think Rohit Sharma's left the ball nicely. He's defended the ball late. Kiro looked a little bit more, I wouldn't say suspect, but he looked as though he was having more trouble out of the two openers. There was a couple of good LBW shouts, one overturned, and he looked as though, Kiro looked as though he didn't know whether to defend or how he was going to score, and he got into a little bit of a rut. I think, what was it, 8 off 54 balls? That tells you how well England have bowled at Kiro, and on this surface, even if England go for long periods of time without taking a wicket, I don't see the game getting too far away from them. I don't see there being lots of runs scored in quick succession because of the nature of England's bowlers. And like what we've just seen there's a ball with your name on it on this surface, especially with the overhead conditions. And England will just say, let's just keep the pressure on. Let's keep the relentless pressure on off stump and see if the batsman is good enough to stay with us all day. And if not, we'll be ready to take the catches and take the nicks. And it was a great catch by Johnny Bairstow.
Yeah, I like what you said there because for a batter who started this store money with an 84 and 129, and you thought KL Rahul has redeemed himself, made the most of this opportunity after other players weren't available. He suddenly, in the span of one Test match, getting out for naught and 8 in this one, seems like he's not the same player of the first two Tests. Seems a bit suspect, like Steve says. Can you explain that?
Well, it can happen to anybody, because if you've had a couple of good test matches, your concentration level, like the way he got out in the first innings, that started creating doubts in his mind that am I good enough to bat on these kind of surfaces where the ball is seaming around, swinging in the air because, whenever there's a cloud cover, the ball starts swinging pretty heavily. So I think, first of all, I would like to give credit to the English bowlers, the way they bowl. They exactly know how to bowl on these kind of surfaces. But as far as KL Rahul is concerned, I think there's that doubt in his mind now. And, it is very important, probably, if he learns a lesson from here, that if you're in good form, then carry it on and don't get complacent like he got in the first innings, because this could happen, what we saw in the second innings. You start doubting your technique.
Yeah, you could see that, Steve. The ball that's coming in particular, the one that got him in the first innings, it seemed to make him very uncomfortable in this one too.
Yeah, and we've got to be careful. He's had one Test match where he's got 2 low scores. He's still relatively new to Test match cricket in the opening batting department. He played in England, which as an opener, very, very difficult to overcome that brand new ball. It just looked in this inning. It just looked in these 54 balls that this was, if he had been like this in his first Test match of the summer, then you'd think, well, he's learned how to open the bat and he's learned how to get going. But like Manny said before, if the confidence he's had from the 2 innings that he's played before, I think the realization that when you come to England as an opening batsman, you start and know every time, and it is challenging for the first hour you go out to bat, no matter who's bowling, whether it's the great Jimmy Anderson or Ollie Robinson and Craig Overton playing their early Test matches. Difficult place to go and play, and it's a learning experience. I think it would be valuable for Keir Rahul going into the next Test match and the next Test match, because he will know next time, well, I could leave a bit more. I don't have to be as proactive with trying to hit the ball. I try and leave as much as I possibly can. Let the ball come to me that little bit more, like Rohit Sharma has done. So all these things that will work out and move forward. I think it's a good education for KL Rahul as an opening batsman in England this Test match.
Now, for those of you that are watching the morning sessions, day one, day two, day three, we've seen overcast conditions in all of them. I'd like for Steve and Money both to spend some time and try and explain, perhaps to just the viewer, the layman sitting like me, and thinking, how is it the England bowlers are getting more out of this than the Indian bowlers? Steve, you could spend some time on this. Take us through why it seems like suddenly this pitch has a little more life in it when the England bowlers bowl versus when the Indian seamers do.
Well, I think the England bowlers have bowled a lot fuller, first and foremost. I think they've challenged the outside edge, they've challenged the top of off stump, and they've challenged the top of off stump, not the top of fourth stump, the top of off stump. And I think that has been a significant difference between India and England. And you've also got the great Jimmy Anderson. And I can keep saying great because it is great. And great is used far too much for me when you're talking about sports people around every sport. There's only a handful of greats ever played the game, and Jimmy is definitely one of them. And he's different. Jimmy gets the ball to swing. I've got a ball here, actually. And when in England, I'm watching Mohammed Shami bowl a ball, and his ball, the seam's coming down straight, bang, like that. Hits the seam, goes away. Now, decent pace, and he gets it to move either way, which challenges the batsman. But if you bowl too short, then the batsman has time to adjust. Possibly, if he's not pushing at the ball, likelihood is he'll either play and miss it, or he will be able to leave it and smother it. Jimmy Anderson is completely different. Jimmy Anderson gets the ball, and the seam's going towards first slip, and it's always going away towards first slip. But when it's coming at the batsman, it's coming towards you, and the batsman all of a sudden think, I've got to play this, I've got to play this. And Jimmy's skill level is taking the ball away. And what he does with that is he drags you right across your stumps. He did it to KL Rahul, not so much to Rohit Sharma. And because of that, then you go and play at things you do not want to play at. I'm sure batsmen all around the world have said, I've gotten in a dressing room after they faced Jimmy Anderson and nicked off and gone, why on earth did I play that? And that's just Jimmy's skill set. But because of the difference in the bowlers, all of a sudden the batsmen get further across their stumps and they play it a lot more because of how good Anderson is. And that, for me, is the difference between India's bowlers and England's bowlers. England have bowled a bit fuller. They've had a bowler that's pitched it up and dragged the batsman across the stumps. And the two tall bowlers have been able to get the ball to bounce and nip away from a fuller straight length. And I think that's the difference between the two. India are a lot more wider, a lot more shorter, which gives the batsman a chance to leave or adjust or basically score off the back foot, especially at Headingley.
Mani, you spoke a lot about length yesterday as well. Anything you'd like to add to Steve's analysis?
Yes, I was just thinking that, when a team is on top, then these kind of things do happen, because when you get out, when your team has got out for 78, then the bowlers, the morale is a little down. But still, I think the Indian bowlers bowled too short. They didn't allow the ball to swing in the air. And, the line was also not very good, to be very honest, because they were giving that room outside the off stump to cut. And if they were going down the leg side, there was enough time for the batsman to adjust and play those balls. So I think the lengths and the line as well by the English bowlers has been better. But, this kind of thing happen when you're on top. And I think the English team at the minute is on top. And that is why you see their bowlers bowling better, because that confidence is behind them, that we've got a big score, big lead behind us. And even if we don't get a wicket for a session or two, there will come a time, when the cloud cover comes, the ball will start seaming around, swinging around, and we will get a couple together.
Shall we also accept, Steve, a point you made yesterday? Again, if I could bring that up again on the type of bowlers that India have. I just ran through that England scorecard. And yes, maybe they didn't have the better of the conditions, but you only had one player who actually got caught behind in the slip court, and that was Bairstow. Everyone else is either bowled. Well, David Malan got one down the leg side, so you wouldn't count that. Everybody else out either bowled, LBW, or caught in front of the wicket. That we did this analysis in the first test too. India's bowlers like doing that. It's the Indian way of attacking the stumps. Bowls and LBWs come into play. But to some degree, is that not ideal for what we're seeing at Headingley?
No, but you're always, if you bowl straight, you've always got scoring options. And if you bowl short and straight, you get tucked off the hip and you get clipped through mid-wicket. And all of a sudden, if you're bowling straight, you've got a chance of being scored from both sides of the wicket, especially if you're left and right hand combination. India were done yesterday by left and right hand combination, bowlers not being able to adjust. And it's all right saying it's straight, But if the ball's pitching on middle stump, I've never, even me as a tail ender number 11, who was always there for a good time and not a long one, would be able to put a ball through mid wicket, no matter who the bowler was, whether it's Jasper Bumrah, whether it was Brett Lee, Shoaib Akhtar bowling the pace that they're bowling. A straight ball, a good player or a competent batsman would be able to hit it. And then all of a sudden, you are opening both sides of the wicket. And I think the disciplines that India didn't have yesterday, and I think the planned of bowling straight is one thing. But if you're too straight, then all of a sudden you open up your scoring options for release of pressure from a batsman's point of view. And the difference from that and England being in and around the top of off stump and relentless in and around the top of off stump creates pressure. And it creates a huge amount of pressure. The scoreboard's telling you you've got huge amounts of pressure. And all of a sudden, you come a mistake. If you keep releasing the mistake because you're bowling too straight, you're not creating any pressure. You're not bogging a batsman down. And in English conditions, if you put pressure on a batsman, overhead conditions come in, there's one with your name on it, and then all of a sudden, that's even more pressure on the dressing room.
I do like how you say that you were there for a good time, not a long one as a lower order batter. Mani spent his share of time at number 11, but I say that with respect. Maninder Singh is a first class 100. I shouldn't just let that go aside. So yeah, but you can sympathize with that sentiment, Mani, can't you?
Yes, you can actually. It's very difficult for the tail enders. It's difficult for the top order batsmen in these kind of conditions. But I would like to add one thing here. When I started playing cricket, I realized one thing, that in India, when I was bowling, there was a little bit of help from the surfaces, and the best way for me to get wickets was to make the batsman drive. And when you're bowling in seaming conditions like in England, that's your best option. Try and make the batsman drive outside the off stump, and that's the way you can get wickets, because you've got enough people, to catch those nicks that come their way. Wicketkeeper, 2-3 slips and a gully. So I think that is where the Indian seam bowlers missed out. Their lines were bad, their lengths were bad, and that is why they struggled. And when the English bowlers come and bowl, it suddenly looks that as if they're bowling on a different pitch. But what surprises me is that this is what India did in the second test match, tried to make them drive. And where did they lose it in the third test match? I mean, I can understand that they had a 10 days gap, but you don't lose your thoughts. You don't lose what you've done in your previous test match. And that is where I think the Indians went wrong.
Yeah, well, it's been a tough test for India, and they're still 320 behind. Fair to say, it's a good chance that England may not bat again, in which case we'll see how India's bowling lineup looks in that next test. But before that, we've got an intriguing day or so to go. Cheteshwar Pujara now comes in after lunch. Mani, we know he's short of runs, all sorts of conversation that's going on anyway about Pujara and not delivering. What's he thinking right now, and what would you be telling of Pujara with the situation that India finds itself in?
See, I would be telling him that, your strike rate, if it is 10, 15, 20, it's not really going to work. You've got to look for runs. You've got to look to rotate the strike as well, because, he's got a lot of respect with these Indian boys, who are sitting in the dressing room. And if they see a Pujara struggling in the middle, who everybody thinks is technically very sound, then, it puts that pressure on the batsman to come as well. So I think Pujara needs to be in a positive frame of mind. I can understand the conditions are like that, but you still have to take those opportunities that come your way. Now, Pujara gets into too much of that defensive mode. And what happens in the bargain is that he loses opportunities of scoring runs, rotating the strike, and then the pressure comes on you.
Yeah, that's the other thing. There's so much time left in this test, Steve. The one way Pujara would say, I can take my time. But fact of the matter is, maybe only if they get runs will England even think about something. Maybe not even then. They're so far ahead in this game. But would you be advising Pujara to play any differently? He's short of runs after all.
No, he's got to play his natural game. The reason why you're playing Test match cricket is because of naturally how good or how skillful, and you've got to back your belief in yourself to play the game that you've been playing for the majority or the whole of your career, whether it's been first class career, playing junior cricket, playing Test match cricket. If the ball's there to hit and it's in your scoring area, you hit it. You have to. It's hard to say take the scoreboard out of the game because England are so far ahead of the game. You just have to bat naturally, and you have to play your own natural game. You'd probably say that to Pant when Pant eventually comes in. And Kohli, I don't think Virat will be any different. I can't see him saying, right, we're going to bat for 3 days or play out for the draw. If the drive's there to go at, he'll go at it. If he nicks it, well, that's his natural game. I think you've got to try and be as natural as you possibly can, and then work over by over, session by session, hour by hour, session by session, and hopefully you get closer to where you need to be. But the pressure is on Pujara, the pressure is on Kohli, it is on Rahane, because the volume of runs in that middle order hasn't been there for a while now. But Pujara goes to the wicket in an environment which he's not too alien in. He goes to the wicket at a ground where he's played county cricket before. He's batted countless times at Headingley, so he knows the surface, he knows the surroundings, and I think he'll have that to fall back onto.
Now you mentioned a lot of batters there, but not Rohit Sharma. You think even though this is England's game, barring a miracle money, Rohit Sharma in some ways just exudes a little more confidence as the most assured batter against the new ball. Again, he's got to start 25 of 60 odd, and the one thing that's missing from Rohit Sharma is that big score. You'd want him to convert that, right? And we've seen through Australia and here Rohit Sharma looking good and getting out. You think this is an opportunity for at least Rohit to get a big score personally?
See, that's what Root must be actually thinking, because Rohit Sharma's got three double hundreds in one-day cricket, and he's somebody who doesn't stop after scoring 100. So for them to get that wicket is going to be very important. I think Rohit Sharma has played brilliantly. Before the tour started, I had my doubts about Rohit Sharma's technique as an opener in Test match cricket, because in one day cricket it's okay, you've just got a slip and a gully, and they also start moving out once they start playing their strokes. But in Test match cricket, even if a bowler goes for a boundary, the captain still got those 2-3 slips and a gully. So I had my doubts about Rohit Sharma's technique, but he's adapted brilliantly. I mean, he's playing so close to the body, and he looks the opener that the Indians need in Test match cricket. Yes, he's got some runs, but he's not been able to convert them into big ones. But I think everybody knows that Rohit Sharma, once he starts getting going, once he knows the pace of the surface and how much the ball is swinging, he could really take it to the cleaners.
Yeah, he does look like the most, like Mani says, playing closest to the body. Steve, Rohit Sharma looks like India's most comfortable batter, you think, over the course of these three tests, even though he's not got as many runs as KL Rahul, not got 100 yet. Still looks for you as the standout batter for India?
Yeah, absolutely, 100%. I think there's been some technical changes, slight changes, just slight changes in the way Rohit Sharma he's gone about his business. And what I mean by that is he's looked to defend the Jimmy Anderson towards sort of cover point, extra cover, and he's gone with the swing. A lot has been made when you hear batsmen talk about playing spin bowling. Off spinner, they'll play a lot to leg side and play with the spin. Don't want to play against the spin. Yeah, in England, you've got to play with the swing. With Anderson swinging the ball away, you don't want to be sort of defending him back down the ground, back towards Jimmy Anderson. You want to be defending him more towards extra cover or cover point and going with the swing. Let the ball come to you and then defend it that way. Don't push at it. And that's the way Rohit Sharma has played. Even when it's come into to Sharma, he's then defended it straight. So that tells me he's not only is he watching the ball, but his head's in the right position. His balance is in good. He's in good order. And the only thing he's not had so far this series is a big score. So that will be something that is pleasing him from a technical point of view, but disappointing that he hasn't converted. And India will be hoping that he can convert something in this Test match, because even though if he does get a big score and India do go on to lose, which I would imagine that's going to happen for the fourth and the fifth Test match going to London and to Manchester, all of a sudden England's bowlers are going, you know what, level playing field. Rohit Sharma just got a big score, he's due, and he's looked in good order. This could be ominous signs for England bowlers further down the line.
Yeah, I mean, that's just what they need to look at. Almost already start thinking of the next test. But 9 wickets for England still to take, Steve, while the focus is all on Anderson. You get the feeling Craig Overton, who started well, 5 overs, 5 runs, got the wicket as well, could be someone who could trouble India this innings. Seems like he's got his tail up.
Yeah, I think Robinson and Overton have bowled a lot fuller, tall men. Overton, he's taller than me. He's about 6'6", 6'7". He's bowled good lengths, very, very good lengths, and that's the key in England, especially at Headingley. Nothing short, nothing wide, nothing to cut. You get at his pace. You don't get any the smaller margins for error. and I think he's asked questions of the Indian batsmen, and he will challenge their technique. And it's amazing when you get a few runs with the bat. If you're supposed to be that lower order all rounder, how quickly it transforms in confidence into the ball. So Overton started well. Sam Curran swung it, which was a good sign for England. And I think Robinson and Anderson started brilliantly. So all in all, I think it was a good session for England. They asked questions, and if they put the same session again together in the second session, I think they'll make more inroads in the middle session rather than they did in the first session.
Let me ask for a predictive answer from Money. Is this test going to end today, Maninder Singh?
Well, I'm hoping not, and I think I'm pretty positive about this Indian team because we've seen so many times, when they're struggling, when their backs are against the wall, they really come back pretty well. We've seen that in Australia. We saw that when England were touring India. They lost the first test match, and look at the way they came back. So I'm expecting a lot out of these Indian boys because they've given us a lot of pleasure, and they are talented lot. It's just a matter of putting it on the ground. I can understand there's a big lead, but sometimes you need to forget that because remember Shami in his press conference yesterday said that we are 1-0 up. Even if we go down in this test match, there's still a lot of test match cricket left in the series, 2 test matches to go. So there's nothing to be disheartened and there's nothing to feel low. I think if you start thinking like that, probably you might get these Indian boys to score some runs. And I'm really hoping that it goes into tomorrow. And I'm really wishing that Rohit Sharma gets some runs and Virat Kohli gets some runs because when they start getting runs, they get big ones. So I don't think this game is going to get over today. It's going to go till tomorrow. But if these two, Rohit Sharma and Virat Kohli, get runs, then probably things could, England could come to chase a score of 100 or something in the second innings. And
Money. You're sharing
being
your
very
the most
optimistic.
optimistic Indian fan. Steve, you have a shorter, more direct answer to the same question.
I think you might get an early finish tonight, boys. I think you might get an extra half an hour off than you normally would have. I can see this game finishing between 5 and 5:30. Psychologically, 6 wickets England get, and it's game over because
Yeah.
India have got 4 number 11s, and with scoreboard pressure as it is, I think that will end very, very quickly. So my prediction is England to win round about 5:15 English time.
It's about 5 hours from now, right? And out of those other batters that we mentioned, 3 of them are struggling for form. So keep an eye out on how this session goes. Maninder Singh shares the optimism and hope this team has surprised us very often, even in the recent past. But Steve Harmison's going by what you think cricketing logic should take this game to. Gentlemen, thank you very much. Let's see where this game stands at tea. Maybe your predictions will look a little better at that time, either way. And we will hope for that discussion on ESPN Cricket for Match Day. Do join us then.